I turned to the person who I know best, who has spoken in different places, and I asked him, "What do you think I should talk about?" And he smiled and he said, "You can talk about walking the talk, but don't forget to raise your feet." This guy sells airtime, so of course I dismissed him because, what does he know, right? And I decided that today I want to talk about something that is not always talked about when you're told about running a business. I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic schools for most of my life, and there was a sister there called Sister Catherine, one of my favorite sisters. And the thing that she used to tell us girls very often is that patience is a virtue. Sometimes she used to shout it at us because we would not be listening to her. And I never understood what she meant, and I thought sometimes that she said it because it sounded good, right? Patience as a virtue was for other people. And as I grew up, patience as a virtue was for the people around me, because I was patient. Until I started my business a little less than 2 years ago. I run something called the Art Space, and at the Art Space we sell art. And I know it's not a life-saving commodity. It's not health, it's not education, it's not even airtime. It's just art, right? And in October 2015, I opened the Art Space to what one newspaper called in grand style. We had 150 people there, DJ Delight was there, he played music, there was bitings and drinks, and there was a big tent, and people tweeted and cheered, and it was very exciting. On the second and third and fourth day, people came to the Art Space, mainly because they were curious, and also because they wanted to support the gallery. On the fifth and sixth day, nobody came. And I spent much of November 2015 opening the gallery, going in and cleaning the floor, and then settling down to sit and wait. I sat and waited for people to come in to look at the artwork, and I sat and waited for people to come in and buy the artwork. One day, I waited so hard that I got frustrated when on my fifth cup of tea, the kettle wouldn't boil as fast as I needed it to boil. And for those of you who know the Art Space, the kettle was not very far from where I was sitting because our office was in the kitchen of this house. At first, I was really angry. What was wrong with people? Did they not want to buy a piece of Kenyan history? Did they not like beautiful things? Was the gallery too far? Maybe I should offer free coffees. Did people not like me? Did people not care about me? And eventually, this series of questions drove me into ridiculousness. I was now at the point of considering opening a nightclub in the gallery so that people could come and see the art. Following that, I tried a number of different things. We went online. I started to talk to collectors directly. And we started to do more programs around the exhibition openings. And we pushed and pushed on social media, quickly realizing that hashtags are not a social media strategy. Slowly, painfully slowly, things began to move. And I spent less time sitting at the gallery, waiting for people, cleaning the floors, and just settling in. And I could now hire somebody else to do that part for me. It was interesting to see that I was not the only one who had experienced the torture of waiting. According to his Instagram feed, this is how my assistant curator had spent his time waiting. Those are paper clips from the Art Space office. That's a bowl of fruit. The fruit was from a tree nearby the Art Space, and I'll show you what happens to that bowl of fruit shortly. Those are the seeds, and they're in an Art Space ashtray. This is how he spent his time waiting. Now, don't get me wrong. We were doing everything that we needed to get work. We were so busy, being busy, but inevitably, we still experienced long moments of waiting. Because, like your individual businesses, my business does not operate in a vacuum. Our traffic into the gallery was determined by factors that were outside our control. It depended on things like where we were in terms of the salary. Was it the beginning of the month or at the end of the month? What day of the week was it? Was it Wednesday or Friday? And what we noticed that people came into the gallery between Wednesday and Friday, but not so much on Saturdays and Sundays. And what mattered more is that if it was a sunny day, people bought artwork. Was the traffic difficult outside of the gallery? And for our location, were Nairobi University students rioting? You see, the term patience as a virtue came into play very heavily for me. It wasn't for others, but for myself. I'd grown up thinking that everything I wanted was within my reach, and all I had to do was to work very hard. This is a lie that I still tell my kids even now. And I think that my mother told me this very lie so that I could work hard. It's only later in life that I learned, and I'm still learning, that you need special ingredient X, patience. About 7 months after opening, I was approached by a donor agency to fund my programs and expand the work at the art space. A blank check. It was a glorious moment to receive that offer. You'd have taken it, right? Yeah. I spent so much time waiting that I had unfortunately spent a lot of time thinking. And with the thinking, I had had several conversations with people who were running art businesses before me and people who ran billion-shilling companies. All of them emphasized one thing. It takes time to grow. And if someone offers to buy into the company to help it grow, they might come at a price that you might not be willing to pay, or you might be unable to pay. I refused the offer and wrote what I hope was a beautiful email, hoping that if I failed at what I had envisioned, which is commercial growth for the company, I could go back to the donor agency and ask for the blank check, tail between my legs, of course. So we continued to wait. Then we were invited to apply to provide artwork for a local corporate, 3 to 4 pieces. Then we waited for a reply after we had applied. And it took several months and numerous emails and proposals back and forth before we got the go-ahead to provide the artwork. Over the last year, we've provided 63 art pieces to this particular corporate. And together with their existing collection, they may very well be the largest collector of contemporary art in East Africa. We have another 2 lined up to sell artwork to. Today, we employ over 50 people indirectly and just 2 directly, one of whom has stayed with me and waited as long as I have, and she's in the audience, Abby. From the money that we make, we cover our expenses and pursue the goal to get more artwork into spaces in Kenya. Because as much as we don't provide a life-saving commodity, we do provide a life-giving commodity. It's a good that allows us to understand our identity and build confidence as a nation. A soft good that translates itself into freedom of expression, deeper thought, and a demand for better. A soft good that has taught me a valuable virtue. We could trade notes, and I bet you will each talk about the action of active waiting, as I prefer to call it nowadays. Because we wait for orders, and we wait for payments, and we wait for the results of our labor, and we wait for change. There's a lot that is not in our control, but sometimes I think we should just dive joyfully into the idea of waiting. But of course, please don't tell me about waiting when I'm in the middle of my waiting. Sister Catherine still teaches at my old high school, and I've been thinking about writing to her and saying that she should change the phrase, patience is a virtue, to say, active waiting is a virtue. Thank you.